when you pick, how does a song, I guess, go from like I want to cover this to like you're playing it on stage or on a live stream?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I actually think it would be worthwhile for me to like make kind of a sort of a walkthrough video at some point. Like I've picked a song, like this is what I do from beginning to end. Um, in the old days, it would start with me. Well, okay. First, I have to decide, can I cover this song? And the things I'm looking for are, can I sing it? Is it in my range? I have a pretty high vocal range, so I can sing, a lot of things, not everything, but I can sing a lot. Um, and can the music exist standing alone on an acoustic guitar without feeling like you're missing too much of the song? Are there going to be like, I don't want a song where there's going to be so many parts playing in people's heads that aren't there. They're going to be like, oh, I wish you did that or that. And so like, so there's sort of a screening process that takes place. Okay. And sometimes the screening process involves just like, well, it was originally played on guitar. Can I play the guitar part? And that's a question I have to ask myself. Can I play the original guitar part? And often I say yes. Sometimes I'm like, no, that's a little bit much to play that and sing at the same time. Maybe I can play it, but can I do that and sing it? I don't know. So sometimes I have to kind of gauge it based on my present ability level. And then other times I'll have to be like, well, I can play the guitar part, but the guitar part is not the song. It's just the guitar part. It doesn't really carry the energy of the song. Um, the rest of the band is actually the song, and the guitar part is just sort of ornamentation, or it's just like flavoring. It's just decoration. It doesn't really carry the chord progression of the song, and that's what you really need. You need a song. If you're playing on acoustic guitar, you need a song where the chord structure is basic enough that it can be translated to an acoustic guitar, either in a strumming or finger picking, or in some ways some kind of melodic element. But most of the time I'm looking for what are the chord changes, and what instrument is carrying those chord changes, and can I play that part? I remember vividly, like when I did Mystic Rhythms by Rush, which is kind of an obscure, like deep cut from the 80s by Rush, but Rush fans love it. It's, including me. Yeah, it's a great song. And this everything I've just talked about, like that song is a perfect example of that. If you sat down to play Mystic Rhythms and you're like, I want to learn Alex's guitar part, and you're playing that, and you're like, that's not the song. And you're singing to that, you're like, it's not really giving you the chord changes. You're not really hearing what the melody's supposed to be playing against. And so that, like, literally, I say it came to me in a dream because I was listening to it late at night one time, and I was listening to the song. I'm like, I was laying in bed, and I'm like, oh, I can do this song. I just need to ignore the guitar part, which is really counterintuitive as a guitar player. Like the guitar part, like what's the bass doing? What's the keyboards doing? What's the drums doing? And that's where I focus my cover. And I do play percussion with my feet. That's something I've added to my set in the last, especially during COVID. But I started before that using a stomp pedal. But now I play stomp with my left foot and a tambourine with my right foot, and that's my kick and snare. And I do that like, whatever the song requires. I do some kind of simplified beat sometimes. I don't go crazy with my feet, but I'm keeping a beat. And if I'm playing alone, it adds a lot to have suddenly a kick drum come in through the subs when you're playing up on stage by yourself with an acoustic guitar. It's like, whoa, people are like, whoa. So yeah, that song has like 4 on the floor where it's got a kick throughout. And I'm like, I can do that. And I'm just kind of strumming the chord changes from the keyboard part with the bass of the rhythm. I mean, the rhythm of the bass. And like, it's a good cover and it works. And in some ways, I think of that as like I sort of unlocked that song for other people. Like other people can be like, how can you play Mystic Rhythms on acoustic guitar? They start Googling. They're like, oh, this guy did it. Oh, that works. And he's like, he's not that great of a guitar player. I can play that. Because I mean, as a guitar player, I'm all right. I'm a rhythm player, and a rhythm player by definition means you can't play lead. Like if you're calling yourself a rhythm player, it's probably because you can't play lead, and that's totally me. And so like I'm a decent rhythm player, but like I have my limitations. So if you can play lead, then you're probably ahead of me on guitar, and like anything I can do on rhythm, you can probably figure out. And so like that, yeah, that helps a lot of people. Like whether or not they can sing it is a different question. That's just kind of up to them. But um, so that's how I approach songs. Like, can I do it? And like, what's the best way to do it? Because I try to cover the whole song and the whole feel of the whole song. I'm not trying to cover one instrument. And so, unless it's like Blackbird, where the guitar is literally the only instrument, if you play the guitar part, you're playing the song. Like, okay, that's simple. But a lot of other songs, you're like, well, it's a whole band. Which part do I need to do? And that's just like, well, which part is carrying the energy of the song, the rhythm of the song? I developed a very like percussive style of playing over the years where I do kind of a slap with my right hand. And so if I'm playing in 4/4, my right hand becomes the snare drum. I'm going dun chicka dun chicka dun. It's just a quick mute. Then on my way back up, it's unmuted, but it's just there long enough to give you that just that little dun dun. And I do that all the time because like when I'm playing alone, I want people to feel it a little bit. I want a little rhythm in there, just not just a strum. It's nice, if you're sitting in a coffee shop, it's nice to hear the little strumming and singing, but sometimes you just want a little bit of variety. You want a little bit more energy. And so that was always my approach was like, I don't want people to feel like they're missing anything when they're hearing my covers. I want people to feel like if they like the original, they'll like my cover. And that's my insecurity as a musician and as a human. I'm grabbing onto the original. I'm just like, I don't want to change it too much because I don't want you judging me. I want you judging the original and through the filter of me. And that's the other reason why I rarely change the feel of the original song. They call them 180 covers. That's the industry term. When you take a slow song and you make it fast, or you take a fast song and you make it slow. And you hear those all the time in like movie trailers. You'll hear some like haunting version of a song with just like a lot of reverb in the vocal line. And you're like, oh, it's that song. And that used to be a fast song and they slowed it down and made it spooky or whatever. That's called a 180 cover. And it's just not something like it's something I could do, but it's not something I've spent time doing because I feel like when people walk into one of my gigs, like even if they've never heard of me, I want them to be like, oh, I knew almost every song he played and it was great. Like there's no like, what's this? What's this weirdness he's introducing? What's he doing? And sure, maybe I'm shutting down my own creativity, but I'm also like keeping it in a familiar territory. And that's just been my personal formula. I don't recommend that for everybody because a lot of people they have musical things to say that maybe like they're going to add something to the song. And I just never had the ego to do that. Like I'm playing these songs that have stood the test of time since the 60s, 70s, 80s. I'm just like, what am I going to bring to that song? It's like I don't view it like I got to fix this song, or I'm going to make this song even better. I just never think of it that way. I'm just like I want to stay out of this song's way. That's my goal. I'm like I want to stay out of the song's way. I just want to put it out there through me and have people appreciate it and like say, hey, that sounded great. And that's a good gig for me.
So you talked a lot about the guitar playing and the arrangement, and the foot pedal, which I think is a great idea. The foot pedal alone is like that. Having that bass drum push it forward is really good. And I think that's something I'm going to incorporate pretty soon in my gigs.
Can I make one small suggestion about that? It's that you should do both feet because if you're just doing one foot, it's kind of hard to stay in balance and in time. But if you're doing this, it's like you're walking and like you're just in better time. And like the reason I switched it, the reason I had my originally it was just because of where I had my pedals. But I'm really glad that the snare drum is my right foot instead of like a drummer would be the opposite. Like if you're Rick Allen, but like the left foot would be your kick drum. For me, that's the way I do it. And the reason that's nice is because the right hand and the right foot are working together. Like this side of my body is the snare. Because if I had the snare over here, I'd be doing it across my body. It'd be weird. And so, like as a guitar player, it was good to be a backwards drummer as a guitar player.
So is it a pedal? Is it like a drum machine? What do you use for the drum? Is there like an act?
So yeah, I have a Wild Dog Bunyip stomp pedal. They're made in Australia, and it's a great piece of gear. It's kind of a little miracle actually because it has no battery, no controls, and you plug it in and it's really loud. It's touch sensitive, and it's just like if you get any decent engineer can make it sound like a really good kick drum. It's just like, and it's just a little piece of wood that's under my foot. With a plug in it. It's just here, one second.
Okay.
It's right here. I'm just grabbing it.
No, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it's just that.
Oh, it's even got a couple little tambourines on it too.
Yeah, it's got the little jangles, yeah. And you can hear them if you're in the room, but they don't really come through the PA so much. It's just kind of a little added percussion to it. And I have these fairly tightened down, so I don't really even use that aspect of it very much. And you can buy them without the jangles, but this is the brand is Wild Dog Stomp, and it's a bunyip. I know it's probably backwards, but yeah. Oh, this says Bigfoot, and this says Bigfoot because they had to change the name because they couldn't get the rights to Bigfoot internationally, and so now they're Wild Dog Stomp. But I like Wild Dog better because it's like the lyrics from Africa. The wild dogs cry out in the night, you know, so it reminds me of Africa. Yeah, so but it's just like it's just got a little port right here, just like a 1/4 inch port, and that's it. That's it. There's no controls, no battery, no
Oh, that's
nothing.
so simple.
It's a
That's so
miracle.
simple. I love it.
Yeah. And then for my right foot, I have literally just a regular tambourine that's got a head on it, like it kind of has a head. And underneath it, like through the little hole in the tambourine, I've got a cable that's running to a floor mic. It's just a little AT floor mic, and it just sits underneath the tambourine on the floor. And I play the tambourine with my foot, and sometimes I'll tip the tambourine up and down like this, and it's hitting the ground. And if you EQ that correctly, it sounds like a snare drum. It's like, and so I've just got like a rhythm section in my feet. It's great, and it's all acoustic. There's no, yeah, I'm not using any kind of drum machines or anything.
Now, does that work at like smaller gigs too? Like, is that worked out? So it's like not only the big stages where you have a professional engineer, but like if you were to play like a private party, you'd bring that with you as well.
Yeah, yeah. Like if I do a local gig with my own PA, I absolutely bring that. Like I won't run the tambourine through the monitor because there's like it's on the floor and the microphone's right there, so I don't want feedback from the. So I don't even need it through the monitor because I can hear it, you know, because it's like it's right by me, so I can hear it. But I love putting the stomp through the monitor. I
Yeah. Oh
love
yeah.
feeling that
Yeah.
little low end.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
want to hear
it's
that?
good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about the arrangement. We've talked about the guitar playing. We've talked about, excuse me. We've talked about the gear. How about your vocals? Because that's the thing I think that sets you apart from everybody else. One of the things I love about you is that, like you said, you pay a lot of respect to the song that you're covering, and you channel so many different singers. So I mean, like obviously Africa. We talked about "Come Sail Away," um, all these other songs, but how do you approach singing a cover song? Because I think that's the thing. That's like the icing on. That's what draws people in. That's the icing on the cake. And I so yeah, I think it's. I'm very curious about your approach because is it when I hear you, I hear you, and I hear I've listened to enough of your covers that I can hear you, but I'm also hearing I'm hearing Don Henley, I'm hearing Dennis DeYoung, I'm hearing David Paich, I'm hearing Bobby Kimball, I'm hearing these other artists. How do you approach singing these cover songs?
Before I answer that, I want to tell you that I really enjoyed your interview with Rick Emmett.
Oh, okay.
I love Rick
Oh,
Emmett. Yeah,
dude, he
yeah.
was so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and just the passage where he's talking about his singing was just like so great. I mean, first of all, like I don't want to get on too much on the Rick Emmett tangent,
No,
but
please
like
do. We love Rick Emmett here.
vocally, yeah, like vocally, I mean, he was maybe the best rock singer of the '80s. Like, I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. If you put his range in there, there was just, I mean, he's like, yeah, like he tells a story like Steve Perry's like, you sing high, it's just like that should tell you something, right? When Steve Perry's like, you sing high, and or like, I mean, I'm sure he would get the same comment from John Anderson from Yes, it's like you sing high. I thought I sang high, I mean, he was just amazing, and just to hear his explanation where he had like kind of thin vocal cords and it was kind of like like almost like he said like he didn't have like a true falsetto. It was like it was kind of a combination of his head voice and his falsetto. I'm just like that makes sense because it's like you couldn't. I mean, it sounds so connected and so yeah. It's beautiful. And then you put that, and he's also one of the best rock guitar players of the '80s. Like it's like I mean, he was just on a next level. I mean, yeah. If there was a true rock and roll Hall of Fame, like to me, he's on my Mount Rushmore because he was just like his guitar skill and his vocal skills was just like beyond elite. And I love, there's so much of the Triumph music that I just adore to this day. Just, I love, yeah. So love you, Rick Emmett. I know you'll never watch this probably, but love you. But just his humility and talking about like, how as he's gotten older, the things he deals with vocally and like the way he talked about like just even a set list, like ordering the songs in a certain order and like making sure, like if I'm doing Africa in a set, which I pretty much can't get away with not doing it. If I'm doing Africa in a set, like it's always in the middle. I'm like, I'm not saving that crap till the end because that's just like, because I don't know what kind of voice I'm going to have at the end. And it's always a challenge. So I totally, and he's like, and you put something easy before the hard song and something easy after the hard, I'm like, I totally do that, just like, I mean, it's kind of intuitive after a while, but like, if you don't, if you're just making your first set list now, you got to think about that kind of thing. It's not just like what order does the audience need this music in? It's like, what order can I really present this in, which where I have a chance. of surviving the set, if it's difficult. And so I really appreciated all of his insights into that. But about like when I approach a song vocally, the first thing I would say is like, do I hear myself in it? And can I hear myself? Like, could I? And that's an interesting question because it's almost a bit like it's almost a little psychological too. It's like philosophical. It's like, can I connect with this song? Do I want to put myself in the position of the presenter of this song? Like, do I relate to this song? And is this something that fits in my worldview and my, like, in other words, is it going to feel real coming from me, you know, rather than some weird imitation of somebody else's real thing? And there's a fine line that sometimes I straddle and sometimes I tip over and go too far across, but there's a fine line between emulation and imitation. And I try to emulate more than imitate. And so when I'm emulating someone, that means I'm trying to use similar parts of my voice that they used in their voice. And that goes back to the first question, do I hear myself in the song? If I answer yes, I hear myself in the song, then my next question is, okay, so what part of my voice do I need to use to sound like this enough where it sounds like the song? I'm not necessarily like, I want it to sound like the lead singer. Not really, but I want it to sound like the song. Like how do you separate those two? Like how much of the song is the lead singer versus it's just the song? And so you get into weird things like accents. Like, okay, it was originally a British guy saying this. Do I sing this with a British accent? Like, is that weird or is that legit? So like those are the kind of things you have to kind of resolve for yourself to be like, I want people to feel comfortable like they're hearing the song and not like they're hearing some dude putting on an act, some poser trying to be British or something, like I don't want that either. And so it's, those are all things I have to kind of settle in my mind. And I usually try to pick people that have tenor voices that have a resonance that's somewhere like mine and, and have a color palette that has a similar color palette to my voice. I can give you an example of somebody like Paul McCartney. If you listen to Paul McCartney throughout his career, even on the same album, he'll sing songs with a like completely different color tone on his voice. He'll just find something weird, and he'll just go with it. And it'll just be like, that's the song. I'm singing the song that way. And that was a choice he made. And so like, but that's kind of like part of the color palette he had available. And so like for me, if I'm going to sing that song, I'm going to sing that in the same part of my voice that he sang it for his, but without trying to get too much Paul McCartney in there and just, make it still Mike Massé's version of that. But like somebody like Michael Jackson, for example, I don't know that I would ever cover Billie Jean, even though I freaking love that song, because there's just so much that's unique to Michael Jackson about his vocal performance that I would be like, okay, if you strip that stuff away, people are still going to miss it. You might still have a good song, but they're gonna notice it's gone. And I'm like, I don't want to pretend I'm Michael Jackson. Like I just feel like there becomes a point where it almost becomes disrespectful. I'm just like I just want to like concede, okay, you win that song, Michael Jackson. I can't touch it. It's like it's all yours. I'm just a fan of that song. I'm not a performer of it. I never will be. And so, yeah, those are some things that go through my thought process. I guess that's a long answer, but all of my answers have been long, so it's par for the course.